And so here is just a quick reminder of all of the ages of the earth. Now, for my personal opinion for the age of the earth, I'll go with just simply 3 different theories that I think I like the most. So I have an old earth, a Midian, and a young earth, just in case people want to know when it comes to all 3 stages. So for an old earth, I would say that creation was before 100,000 years ago, and the flood was around 100,000 years ago. Basically, the post-flood event for an old earth, again around 100,000 years ago, is that mass extinction event. Now for a Midian earth, I would say that creation was before 20,000 years ago, and the flood was the last glacial maximum. After the flood, the last glacial maximum would appear. And basically the post-flood event would be the ice age when the water came back down. And for a young earth, I would say creation was before 12,900 years ago, and the flood was before the young Darius period. Basically, the post-flood event for a young earth, which again is around 12,900 years ago, would be that mini ice age / warming event that occurred after.
Let's now review the main events in the Genesis record in light of the topics we've covered in the hydroplate theory. The flood begins on the 17th of the second month of Noah's 600th year, with the catastrophic rupture of Earth's granitic shell. Deep interconnected chambers of water burst out as great fountains from the deep. Heavy rain falls from the fountains for 40 straight days, then suddenly stops even though the waters continue rising. In the early stages after the rupture, some regions of Earth are buried in supercold hail and muck, trapping, freezing, and preserving mammoths and many other plants and animals. At the same time, Earth's hydroplates are fluttering from the powerful horizontal flow of the ocean of escaping water below. The resulting pressure waves in the granite's quartz produces huge voltages which arc within, producing focused nuclear fusion and fission events, which birth Earth's heavy radioactive elements. The chaotic environment filled with many high-speed subatomic particles bombard the new, fragile heavy nuclei, greatly accelerating their decay rates. The heat generated greatly accelerates the flow of the escaping fountains. Some materials swept up in the violent hypersonic flow of the pulsing fountains are accelerated to such high speeds that they escape Earth's gravitation. An ocean of water, rocks, minerals, gases, dust, and organic remnants are blasted from Earth into the solar system, eventually becoming what are now observed as comets, asteroids, meteoroids, and trans-Neptunian objects. Floodwaters continue to rise even though the rains have stopped, as subterranean waters continue to escape from below. Plants and animals are buried in the muddy waters and eroded sediments. Repeated liquefaction of sediments produces stratified layers in which buried animals and plants are sorted into a sequence that some today mistakenly claim was produced by millions of years of evolution. After about 150 days, the hydroplate's perimeters have been eroded hundreds of miles and have thinned, forming continental shelves and slopes. The mantle floor can no longer support the imbalance from the missing material and bulges up, producing the mid-oceanic ridge. Rapid continental drift begins as plates slide away from the rising mantle floor. Soon the plates crash into the mantle floor as they run out of the lubricating water below. The compression event crushed and thickened the hydroplates and formed mountain chains. As that land thickened and rose, the floodwaters drained into very deep ocean basins. Much of the world's buried plant life is compressed and heated, forming many coal and oil deposits. The big roll of Earth's surface begins. After 150 days, the ark comes to rest on a newly formed mountain rising out of the waters. Meanwhile, the rising Atlantic seafloor causes shearing far below, and Earth's core begins melting and contracting as it extrudes toward the rising Atlantic. The Pacific hydroplate on the opposite side of Earth is pulled deep down under miles of rising magma, which is expanding up from the crossover density boundary. The Pacific seafloor is then covered in volcanic seamounts. A great wind is observed as the atmosphere adjusts to the subsiding Pacific plate, and ocean trenches are produced by the deformations. For centuries afterward, heat from the rising magma warms the oceans, greatly increasing evaporation rates. That, in combination with the newly formed continents yet to fully sink into the mantle, cause Earth's first and only ice age. 74 days after landing on Mount Ararat, surrounding mountains finally become visible. Noah begins sending birds out in regular 7-day intervals, observing their behavior. After 314 days since the flood, land is fully visible. Noah uncovers the ark. Apparently conditions are still too unstable to exit. Finally, 57 days later, after 371 days since the rupture, the land is dry and stable enough for all to exit the ark. Unbeknownst to Noah's family, the melting inner Earth is gradually increasing Earth's spin rate. The 360-day calendar they've used to chronologically track these events will soon be obsolete and confuse many generations of their offspring. As the newly formed mountains slowly settle into the mantle, frictional heating melts rock, generating magma. The magma is then injected under the adjacent crust, causing the weakest portions of the crust to fracture and rise to become plateaus. As the thickened continents sink into the mantle, the initially deep ocean floors rise to today's level in compensation for the downward flow of mass. Of course, sea levels rose with the ocean floors, and the continents were divided by water in the days of Peleg.
So, summary and conclusion. The hydroplate theory proves the global flood, and the global flood and the hydroplate theory proves the Ice Age and a mass extinction event, followed by the Stone Age and human development, which all can prove the age of the earth, beginning from Noah to us today, depending on how old you believe the earth is. With all of that being said, choose whichever model best fits for your world view. With that being said, have a blessed day and shalom.